10 ticks on there, so you can kind of, if we do it as 1, there's actually 100 ticks in there, and it kind of looks hard to see. So let's turn that to 10, so there'll only be 10 ticks in there. And that's that as far as that goes. The only thing we'll have to do then is wire this in, so when the user changes it and they click on the OK button, which we'll add here shortly, it'll automatically change the opacity of our main form. All right, let's add another one on here. Let's add a checkbox on here, and we'll just call this checkbox. We'll name it here. How about keep form? How about this? Keep application on top. There we go. And we'll just call this CB keep on top. There we go. So there's a couple of options there. Let's just the only other thing we'll have to add here is an OK button, right? We could actually add a cancel button too in case they wanted to cancel out other changes, but to keep this simple, we'll just leave this as an OK button here. We'll call this btn OK, and let's go down to our text property here and just put OK. So now the only thing we need to do here is put code inside of this form to manipulate our main form when the user clicks the OK button. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go into our OK button here, and now what we need to do is access, and let me go ahead and close it, just hide our toolbox here. We need to access our main form and manipulate the properties on that. And you can do that using the my keyword. If you do my and then a dot, here comes a lot of common objects that we can use relating to resources and areas within our application. And in the forms area here, if we go ahead and put another dot, we'll list all of our forms. So this is a great, easy way to access all the active forms within our application. So if we do my.forms.mainForm, and you start typing opacity here, you can see it'll take us right to it. There's the property we want to set, right? So we want to set the opacity here equal to the current form, and we can do me, of course, for the current form. And we're going to, of course, we need to reference our track bar button, so we can do me.tbOpacity, and then we want to extract the value out of it. And that's it. So when the user clicks OK, it's going to take whatever value this is, 1 to 100, and it's going to apply it to the opacity property on our main form. And the only other thing we need to do now is also work on our keep application on top here, and we'll do pretty much the same thing here. We'll do my.forms.mainForm.topmost form here is going to equal whatever the value of our checkbox here, our keep on top checkbox is. So we'll just say, give us the checked value. So if it's checked, this will equal true, and topmost will equal true. If it's not checked, this will equal false, and topmost will also equal false. We'll save it. And now the only other thing we need to do here is go back to our main form, which is over here. We'll open it up, and now we just need to put a little button on here that, of course, calls our options form. So let's go back into our toolbox here. We'll drag a button on here. We'll make this a nice big button. There we go. And we'll name it options, and we'll call this btn options. There we go. And now the only thing we need to do is put code in behind this to call up our options form. So let's double click on our options button here, and we'll just go ahead and we'll say when user clicks on this button, we want to go to my.forms.optionforms.show. And what you can also do is there's a parameter inside of the show here as the owner, and this is what I mean by making parent-child forms, putting basically a relationship between them. If we type in me inside of there as a parameter, now the options form is a child of our main form here. And so what we can do is, basically what you want to do in this case is you can do a show dialog, in which case that would be a modal form like I showed you earlier, help about. This is a show dialog because it's a modal form, meaning of course you have to deal with it. So by doing a show, it's just going to show it, where a show dialog will show it and it will force you to deal with that options form before doing anything else within the application. And of course now we can go back to our options form since this is a child form, and we can set the startup here. Where'd you go? Startup? Anywhere? Oh, that's because I'm on the button here. We have to click on the form to get the form properties, and here's our start position. We want to turn this to center parent. So now it'll center itself within the main form when we open it. Alright, so we did all this. Should we test it out now? Alright, I'll save the application. So we'll run the application here by clicking on the start button. Fire up our application. Here's our options button. Let's click on it. And if we go ahead and modify our transparency here and then choose to keep our application on top, we got a couple of bugs here, and I put these in here on purpose because you never get things right the first time when you're programming, and that's something you'll just have to become accustomed to. And it's all about problem solving and constantly refining and evolving your application. So what I'm going to show you here is number one, Here's our options form. You can see it showing in the taskbar. We wouldn't want that to happen, especially considering it's a child form of our main form here. We want this to just simply not appear. So we'll need to change that on the form border style. Another thing here is if we hit OK, you can see by hitting OK it definitely applied our code, but it didn't close out of our options dialog. We forgot to close this form when we were done with it by clicking on OK. So now we're kind of stuck in this form. And another thing is the opacity didn't work because the keep on top did work. I'll show you that, but the opacity didn't work because it's actually a percentage. And a percentage between, of course, a value between 0 and 1 then. So we need to do something about that. We need to add a calculation in order to make that happen. But just to show you that the topmost work, if we clicked on anywhere inside of Visual Studio here, this other application, you can see that it's staying on top. So that did work. So if we go back to options and we uncheck it and we click on OK, and just clicking OK applied the code again. Now we have to close out of our form, and now we click on it, it goes back behind. It's no longer on top. So we got a couple of changes we need to make here. Let's go ahead and stop the application. The first thing we're going to do is go to our options form, and let's just go ahead and turn show in taskbar to false. So that won't show in the taskbar anymore. The second thing we need to do is ensure that our options dialog closes when the user clicks OK. So we just need to go in here and at the bottom add a me.close, and that'll close the application, or excuse me, close this form. And finally here we need to do something about our opacity. Now since this is a value between 0 and 1, basically what we need to do, since we have 0 to 100, we just need to divide it by 100. And we would be all set then. So now if we save this, and we close out of our code window here, we'll go ahead and hit the run button. Now everything should work. And if we hit the options button, you'll see the options form is not showing up in the taskbar. Now if we go ahead and change our opacity here to about 50% and hit OK, look at that. So everything's stuck, everything's working now. We have a nice half-transparent form here, and we fixed all of our bugs. So that's kind of just getting used to being a programmer there, is putting mistakes, making mistakes, and then of course fixing those mistakes. But that's why we have a nice environment to work in. We can constantly hit run and look at it just as the user would, so we can kind of track down our own bugs and constantly refine the application as we go. Now the last thing I want to show you is I just want to show you that you can create, you're not bound to just the look and feel of these Windows forms. You can get very creative. You can create forms that pretty much look anything that you can dream up. Think of Windows Media Player or Winamp or any type of application that doesn't look like your standard Windows form. We can do it. And I just kind of want to give you a little insight on how that's done. The first thing you'll probably want to do here is turn the form border style to none. And you can see if we do that, if we go to form border style and turn it to none here, there's no border whatsoever on here. Right? And that's the start, because you're going to make your own border eventually. And of course, by doing and creating your own form, you're going to have to make your own minimize and maximize and close buttons and control boxes and pretty much everything on the title form. You're going to have to make your own borders, everything. So we'll come back to this in a second. I'll turn it back to sizable for now. What I did is I added some code into the load event, and we're just going to basically make a circular form. And it's pretty easy to do. We have the graphics library here inside of the drawing classes. The graphics library is pretty extensive, and you can pretty much, using shapes such as ellipses, and just to show you here, if I do a GP dot, you can lines, ellipses, pies, you can make your own path, polygons, rectangles, and the list goes on and on. So you basically, this is a way to draw with code using the drawing library. And there's drawing 2D, there's drawing 3D, and we're just going to draw a 2D using a graphics path here. And the graphics path object, we're going to use the add ellipse method, which just takes a couple of parameters here to define your ellipse. And of course, in our case here, we're creating a circle. We're going to create a circle based on the current size and width of our form. And then all you have to do is create a region object and tie your region object to your graphics object, and then tie the region object itself to the me.region property of the form. Obviously, this region property is not a design time property. It is a runtime only property. So once we do that, if I hit the run button here, we should have a circular form. Look at that. Kind of circle. It's more of an ellipse than a circle, but you get the hint here. And you can see the only reason we can drag this form around is because I turned it back to an actual form, a border form, a form with a border on it, a sizable form here. Because you can see if this circle was a little smaller, then there would be no way of moving this form. That's the only reason I can move it, is because we have this. So this is why you'd want to turn the form border style to none, and then you would implement your own everything. Everything on the interface would have to be implemented basically from scratch on yourself. But it's not that hard to do, as daunting as it seems, and it is totally possible. So just to give you a little insight there, you definitely would be using the graphics libraries in here, and then of course you'd have to create everything on that form from scratch. Alright, so in this CBT Nugget, we took a look at how to configure Windows Forms. We started off with just a brief introduction there on what Windows forms are. They're, of course, hosts and containers for controls that allow the user to interact with them. And then we took a look there at the different types of Windows forms. We saw there's an MDI form, multiple document interface form, and there's also just your standard form. And then we took a look at how to do a lot of stuff inside of Visual Studio, how to create a project, a Windows application project, how to add a form, a couple of forms to the project. And then we took a look at how to configure the form itself by setting properties at design time, and really just modifying the look, the feel, and the behavior of the form within the Properties window inside of the Visual Studio environment. And then we took it to the next level and saw how to manipulate those properties at runtime using code. And then after that, we even took it to another level and looked at how to manipulate properties of multiple forms across form boundaries. So how to communicate between forms, call different forms, set some properties and such. And at the end here, I just wanted to give you a little insight on how you're not bound to creating just these standard look and feel Windows forms and applications, but how you can create your own form kind of from scratch there and really build everything how you envision a form to look.